right. All right, Nathan, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you being here. How's it going?
Good yourself. Good day for you.
Good, man. Good. It's a great day here for me. It's a little cold up here in Canada, but it's a pretty good day.
It's snow up there all today? Snowed here.
Man, there's no snow up here. It's been like the weirdest winter. There's just been no snow, and if it snows, it rains the next day. So there's just like no snow.
Yeah.
It's just freezing cold here. So
Okay. Yeah,
it's good for
snowed
the
good. Otherwise, ice probably been really good up there.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's good for the outdoor hockey season, but outside of
Right.
that, it's just cold. Yeah, no, I wanted to get you on here. We've been following each other on Instagram for probably like about a year now. When I first came across your page, the thing that drew me into your page was just Velocity Hockey Center in general. Just saw like a training clip from what you guys do down there, and I was intrigued by the sender. Like I think one of the videos I was watching was a guy throwing the med ball against like what looked to be an area to shoot pucks, and then there's a nice turf area to sprint, and you guys have the cool Kaiser equipment and all that stuff. So I jumped on your page and took a look at the athletes. You guys are training all the way from NHL down to youth, and so I was really intrigued. Tossed you a follow, and we've been chatting on and off since then. So why don't you just take us through kind of what Velocity Hockey Center is, kind of how it came to be, and what you guys do there.
Yeah, so this is I think in April will be my third full year going like working for Velocity Hockey Center, and I'm the director of performance or director of strength conditioning, kind of whatever you want to call it here currently. I guess just how it came about was I was in the college sector for St. Cloud State men's and women's ice hockey programs up there. Just was looking for a new job, nothing bad or anything, of course, from that regard. Just kind of looking to grow a little bit, and I've always known about Velocity just because of my time. I interned at the University of Minnesota with Cal Dietz, and there's a pretty good relationship with Velocity Hockey Center and Cal, and I've already have a pretty good relationship with Cal already as it is, so it kind of helped me find this spot. I've done an RPR clinic here when RPR like was first getting started. We've hosted RPR clinics and everything like that. Yeah, that's how I kind of came to this spot and everything. Just a little bit, I guess, about Velocity Hockey Center is I work at Velocity Training Center, so just like you said, the off ice kind of stuff, the strength and conditioning, the speed, the power, the strength. We do have 2 shooting bays here, so those are used quite a bit, and then we have 2 hockey rinks as well that are like small 3-on-3 hockey rinks. So we do a lot of skill stuff out there for. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So it seems like you guys have been able to wrap it all in under one roof there. I know you mentioned Cal Dietz. I want to get into Cal Dietz here in a little bit, but kind of you mentioned strength, power, speed within what you guys do there. So within kind of the system that is Velocity Hockey Center, if you can call it that, or Velocity Training Center, sorry. What are your top priorities from a strength coach perspective in just preparing like your athletes for the demands of sport or demands of hockey, and kind of how does that fluctuate throughout the year, throughout off season and in season?
Right. So I guess you can take this question a couple of different ways, but we can start off. It kind of depends on what population of like training experience you're looking at, right? Like if we're looking at, for example, the summer here in Minnesota, where we get all our college level, like D1, D3 hockey players, and we have our pro guys from NHL, AHL, play over in Europe, East Coast League, all that kind of levels, to all the way down to, for example, right now, which is our busy time for our association teams, ranging from mites all the way up to bantams or even varsity hockey players. It kind of depends on the training age level. So I guess from a system top priority, I would say speed's always going to be number one. My actual background is I never actually played the sport of ice hockey. I grew up skating because I'm from Minnesota.
Nice.
Never actually learned to probably shoot a puck, which is hilarious. All the guys would give me crap here. Like I've learned to shoot a puck in the last probably 6-8 months. Probably
Nice, yep.
now, like when a lot of guys come home for winter break, we typically, now that they see that I'm shooting a lot, they actually want to play pig with me. And I've got a couple letters on some guys that are known as good shooters. So
I love it. Yeah.
Slowly getting there. But from a priority standpoint, my background was track and field. Like I did college track and all that good stuff. Again, Division III, so I'm by no means like Olympic level or anything like that, but that is where my background is. So I would definitely say like the speed aspect is going to be a number one priority, is trying to improve everyone's speed on ice, off ice. All that is like probably the number one. And I think nowadays, if you look at the industry from a hockey standpoint, a lot of people are training. So they have a relatively high experience coming in. What, especially if we look at the high school varsity player, right? They've had some experience probably training. Or at
Right.
least so like the actual strength piece of like learn to squat, bench, and deadlift really heavy. Like I think that's and I think you see that with a lot of sports now, is like it's starting to go away from like lift as much weight as you can. Not saying that's not important, because it definitely is, and they need to have the foundation that they need to know how to squat, like the youth athlete, right? They need to know squat pattern. Now it doesn't have to be a back squat, but they need to know the foundation and have a good solid foundation set up.
Right.
But I think that speed is going to raise a lot of other things first. So I think in training the nervous system to be really, really fast at an early stage is going to help them long term, rather than, hey, let's load these little kids up and never teach them to be fast. I would rather, if I only get a group of kids, say 1 day a week, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of strength training, but most of it's going to be speed, because I think that's going to help them long term. I'd rather have an athlete try to be super fast rather
Right.
than like just, that would be, I guess, number one priority would be the speed aspect. We do a ton of sprints. I would say like an outsider looking in would probably look at our program and kind of say like, you kind of treat them like a track athlete a little bit. Now, are we doing like actual sprint mechanic stuff? I personally don't. And the only reason why I'd say that is because I understand they are not track athletes.
Right.
Maybe from a coordination standpoint, it could definitely help if an athlete's like really bad, like coordination standpoint. But I don't think me teaching them how to come out of, like you right now, NFL season's coming to, or college football just ended last night. Everyone's talking about combine training. It's like, I don't need to teach them how to come out of the 40-point start. Like that's not
Right.
going to have any carryover.
Right.
They need to learn how to project their hips through space and all this good stuff, 100%, because there's a lot of good research coming out now too, is the better you are off ice, typically you're better on ice, right? The projection, the start on ice is going to be very similar on off ice. So I almost do it more of, I give them a constraint. Like I had this conversation with one of my lacrosse players yesterday, but we were talking about how his speed's improved, and we don't do a lot of mechanical stuff, but you can see in his stride and everything, there's a lot more. It just looks a lot better, and we don't really do a lot of actual like mechanical breakdown of like, hey, we're gonna do a skip. Hey, you gotta get more front side here and there. I don't do that. I'd rather give them constraints to work on a piece that they need, so they don't
Right.
think about it. They learn for the self-organize for themselves. And that's the same thing I think with hockey. Is like, I just need to improve the overall like adaptation or quality. I need to improve that. I know it's going to help them from an overall athleticism standpoint. And typically, the more athletic you are, you're going to be a better hockey player, or at least give you opportunity to have better, like, I don't know what to say here, but it just gives you more opportunities to be a better player, right? Like
For sure.
you can't be a really good hockey player, be the worst athlete in the world at every
Right.
other thing. Like you still have to be athletic.
Right.
Um, but I would say that would be the number one priority, is that give be that speed aspect of everything. Then probably reality, like you can't be super weak. Again, I'm kind of going contradict myself here, but number one, you have to be fast.
Right.
Is it'd be the number one thing. But again, like hockey's an interesting sport. Like
Yeah.
they're on skates and they fly around going 23 all the way up to, I think I looked it up the other day. NHL posted something. I think it's like 25 miles per hour is the
Yeah.
top
It's
speed
crazy.
It's like, now, a lot of guys hit that in a game? No, but they're still flying around on skates, and they're it's basically football players on skates to some players, right? Like you're hitting full body contact checks and everything, and there's less padding on hockey players, so they still need to have some sort of, like, that's where it's like they still need to be strong and they need to look strong, right? Like the whole like I joke around like we got to fill the jersey. It's like we don't need to fill the jersey to be fat, but we needed that extra layer of protection more than anything. And that's where, like, quote unquote, you could use like a bodybuilding method, especially for the upper body, right? Like you need to pack on some size. It's just extra protection.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said there about like stimulus and just like bringing it out. So I find so many players get so caught up in like what's the best exercise to do X, or like how do I train to get faster on the ice, and it's like it's less about what you're doing from an exercise standpoint and more about just applying that stimulus to the body. And I love how you guys like have that holistic approach of like, some guys are fully in one camp, can't go wrong getting strong. Some guys are just like, we only train the nervous system, but like you kind of need elements of everything, right? Like strength is going to raise your ceiling to be faster, but at a certain point there's diminishing returns on that, right? And so you have to at some point train the nervous system. And then I like what you said, even from an injury standpoint of like, people in the sports performance realm will like shit all over bodybuilding and like I would never get my athletes to do a bicep curl, and it's like, well, maybe that's why your athletes are blowing their shoulders out all the time, right? Because they don't have any like quote unquote armor, because you don't do any hypertrophy with them, right? And so I love how that's like speed is the top priority, and I think I would definitely agree with you on that. Like in our system, we put a huge emphasis on speed just because that's kind of where the game's going, right? We can all agree that like it's not necessarily like a big boys game anymore. There's definitely still elements to it, and like you say, you need to be strong, you need to be like tough on the puck. But the guys who are really like breakout players now are the guys who can really create space with their speed. And you answered one of my questions there with I was interested with you coming from a track background and training a lot of speed. You have a lot of guys who will train like athletes like they're track athletes, and in my opinion, like the sprint mechanics outside of something like track, I don't know how much carryover it has. I think there's, like you said, definitely elements of like they need to understand how to project and they need to understand how to accelerate and have those negative steps. But hockey, like you said, is so interesting in that it's like it's tough to quantify like what I'm doing here from a sprint mechanics and sprint kind of perspective, like how much carryover is that actually having to on ice. So I'd say like we put less emphasis on like top end speed and more emphasis on like those first couple strides, like the 5 meters, right? Like that acceleration of like learning how to get horizontal, learning how to project your hips. And so I love that. That's very similar to how our system operates. I guess a follow-up question to that is, do you see any need to train like the positions of hockey differently? I know there's like some camps that are like defense and forward are kind of like similar. They're similar positions, but obviously they do different things. And so like we should train them differently. And then I know every time I get a goalie, they want completely different training, right? Because they're like, my position's completely different. And to a certain degree it is. But in my eyes, they're not all that different. So I'm interested to see, like, do you guys feel any need to train them differently or no?
I guess we don't really do goalies, or we go down the goalie rabbit hole of like, do they need to be trained differently from a positional player? To a certain extent, yes, just because they are a completely different position, right? Like forwards and defensemen are definitely gonna be more similar than a goalie. But to me, I would say like and there's tons of, anyone can say this about any of the positions, but you need to be really, really strong relative to your body. Well, the goalies are probably the purest example of like, they need to be really strong because they need to be able to like stop, have a ton of braking force, and be able to like instantly slide across the crease. So reality, they need to be like the strongest guys relative to their body weight. Like I have some goalies in here that are absolute freaks, like of just nature of like, oh my gosh, you create so much power, so much speed going on, like from the mobility standpoint, yes, you could go down tons of different rabbit holes for those goalies for sure. And I know a couple people that work with some of our pro goalies that like all source out to for more FRC type principles, just because reality just don't have the logistical time to like go down with each of our pro goalies.
Right.
So we kind of source out to people that I trust a little bit from that regard. But yeah, I guess I would say if we're looking at more of defensemen and forwards, like I thought about this a couple of years ago, actually, like when I was worked in the college setting, is if I was like looking at a 10 and 20 yard or the 20-yard dash, like for 20-yard meters, technically for you guys up in Canada, 20 meters. But if we look at the splits, like what we found when I worked in the college setting was all our forwards had actually really good second half of the 20. And then all our defensemen had really good first 10, which was really weird. And I don't know if it's because maybe our forwards are more elastic dominant and they're more quote unquote are the twitchy guys. And maybe that's just because your defensemen, because they're on the ice more, they're going to be kind of like that crossover person where they're both aerobic and more anaerobic. Again, the whole sport is the crossover compared to like a track athlete. But if you look at ice times and stuff like that, and even gliding and everything like that, the musculature part is going to be way more defensemen just because they're skating backwards. That's how I look at things, at least. Compared to a forward, I would say it's just so much more. Even like with some of the players I've worked with, a lot of my forwards are those more elastic, twitchy kind of guys.
Yeah.
And those defensemen are like, again, everyone says he's a big defenseman. Like, okay, they're probably good at starts. They're probably like, you know what I mean? They don't get moved much. Their whole job as a defenseman is to not move, right? Like, so when so they just don't get. Now you can look at centers and stuff like that and get super detailed too. It's like, hey, your job is to stay in front of the net and not get moved because you want to tip the puck. Okay, so that you can look at that rabbit holes too as well. But in reality, I look at defensemen as more quote unquote the muscular person, compressive, whatever kind of term you want to use. They're all saying the same thing. And then your forwards are going to be more those quote unquote maybe elastic. They still can't be like the string being NBA super elastic NBA player we see nowadays, like Kevin Durant. Like he's super elastic. Like pure example, like LeBron's probably like the middle ground of the two. Giannis is 100. If you watch basketball, Giannis is 100% the muscular dominant kind of guy, right?
Right.
Now they're all, but that's how I kind of like look at things. I also think like you need to know, like, I guess we're going down a little bit farther down the line of questionnaire we probably will talk about today, but like in season, like you almost, and a ton of strength coaches say it too, right? Like give them what they're not getting in season.
Right.
Well, for me, I still need to sprint them. I actually do quote unquote fly 10s, but like the biggest build I'll give a hockey guy is 15 yards, especially in season, 15-yard build, 10-yard fly. So 25 yards is the max we'll run typically. Otherwise, we do a ton of starts, resisted sprints. And the only reason why I will do that is I think they need to have that from a nervous system standpoint.
Okay.
Like
the top, you mean they need the top end work, or they need those longer duration sprints?
Yeah, they need those longer duration sprints just to like, I think it's a good quote unquote skill to have, like whether it be a skill, it can be the nervous system preparedness. Like they need to understand what like true top end speed is, like, right? It's still a stimulus. Like, hey, if they never get this top end speed stimulus, now is it the mechanics and the ground contact the same as like on ice top speed? No, but the stimulus is still the same. You're moving as fast as you can. That's super stressful. Like you hear guys that are talking about like doing the full lap and then top end speed as like quote unquote over speed, right? Yeah. And that's like they're super taxed. They're not sore, they're just very drained the next day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they still, and that's where it's like if I don't ever do any like, sometimes I don't get time to go on ice with guys, but like if I never give them like a top end speed stimulus here, they don't understand like what that's supposed to feel like. So that's the only reason why I give flies. Now I might give it to an athlete if we're looking at the off season at the beginning, or maybe more in the middle after we've done some prep stuff. And then
Right.
the closer we get to camp, I might start decreasing that a little
Yeah.
bit, just because like they don't need to be doing 30-yard sprints. Maybe we'll do a lot more Excel work and stuff like that. But
Yeah. No, I love that. You touched on it a couple times there with like the in-season versus off-season kind of debate, and it is quite a debate, I guess you could call it, in the hockey strength and conditioning realm. And like you said, given them what they don't get on the ice, but like also you need to touch on elements of everything. With hockey where it is these days, I don't know how we talked about this before we hit record about like Minnesota's kind of a hockey crazy state, and obviously I'm up in Canada and we're kind of known for being hockey nuts, right? And so
right,
at least up here, I know that kids are like hyper focused, especially I say kids because like it's usually the younger athletes that we have, like Bantam and under, sometimes bleeding even up into like the U18s. They're so hyper focused on hockey, and it's like, hockey's becoming a year-round sport for some of these kids, and it's like, once the season ends, there's a camp to go to, and there's this ID camp, and there's this power skating session that we need to go to, and
right.
if he went to it, I need to be at it, and there's pressure from the parents to be on the ice all the time, and I find a lot of kids are just losing out on basic athleticism because they spend too much time hyper focused in the sport of hockey, right? And so I'm interested to get your take on like what is the optimal balance between off ice development and on ice development, and is there an optimal balance, or are we getting too far away from off ice development at this point in the game?
I guess it's hard because like I've had conversations about this with not just parents but other coaches that I respect and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day, I think like the general consensus is that most sports nowadays are all around sports. Like
Right.
you cannot, with the improvement of technology, just everything, like just everything growing, right? There, you can even say from a financial reason, like people want to make more money. You're like, well, we need to make it all around so we have constant income coming in, right? But I don't know, like I am a firm believer of like, for example, like if we have like a kid that's a squirt age or even a peewee, like little Timmy doesn't need to be skating 7 times a week
Right.
even in season or even off season. Like, why is it okay that our NHL players that play 82 games in a regular season, they take like a month off? They don't
Right.
they don't touch the ice. If they do touch the ice, it's maybe like, hey, I'm gonna go skate with my kid, and we're just I'm literally just I'm on skates. I'm not actually skating.
Right.
Or they can do maybe like they don't touch the ice for 2 weeks, but they're doing stick handling and stuff like that,
Yeah.
to keep like the coordination aspect high and everything. But they don't need to be on the ice. Like go and learn more skills. Like even like the general approach, like the amount of kids that I deal with. You know who Austin Yoakum is? I don't know if you know
Yeah.
who that is. We were
Yeah.
talking about this this conversation a little bit last week in the sauna because we go to the same sauna spot. We were talking about how like he was dealing with a young hockey group in the summer, and I deal with them all the time in the winter. But we were talking about how like the kid was afraid to do a somersault, and we had those giant gymnastic mats out, right? Like that was
Right.
soft. Like we already have turf here already, but we throw them out anyways to make them
Right.
like I'm gonna break my neck. I'm like, I've seen you play. I think it was actually a peewee. So I'm like,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
a peewee player. I'm like, I'm gonna break my neck. I'm like, I've seen you play before. Like you get knocked down all the time. You're fine.
Yeah.
Like you can start on your knees and roll, right? Like it's just basic, like fundamental stuff like that. It's like like there's there has to be something wrong. Like the fact
Right.
that a kid is afraid to do a somersault here,
Yeah.
but he plays a contact sport, even though peewees are not allowed to check. Like,
Yeah.
go watch a peewee game. There's some checking and
Absolutely. Yeah.
knocking people over, right? Like that's part of the sport is to actually hit people. To a certain now they're trying to get rid of that. Yeah, blah blah. That's
Yeah.
another
It's a conversation
conversation.
for another day. Yeah.
But like we should be able to learn basic gymnastic skills, right? Like
Right.
we shouldn't shy away from that. But I just don't think it's all right for where like all we do is spend our time on the ice. Like we can work on other qualities. And I think you look at like talking with both national development team and stuff like that, like those I guys have conversations with like their strength coaches too. And I think they would probably agree that they have very similar beliefs of like they need to like they improve the overall athlete first and then worry
Yeah.
about the skate, especially off season, right? Like little Tommy and Timmy don't need to be skating this a ton in the summer. Like they need to be working on the things they need to work on 100%, but they
Yeah.
don't need to skate. Their skating volume doesn't need to be the same as it was in season,
Right.
or even leading up to season, right? Like the preseason.
Yeah.
Like we can back off on and work. Hey, you want to get faster? Well, you're not that strong. That's the lowest hanging fruit. If we
Right.
look at your body weight compared to other people on the team that are actually smaller than you, they lift the same amount of weight as you, and
Yeah.
and they're faster than you. Like, okay, we need to improve your overall strength relative. That's like the lower hanging fruit, or whatever it might be. Is I just don't. Yes, I think a lot of people probably spend too much time on maybe the actual specific of the sport, when I
Yeah.
think they need to look at improving all of these general qualities a little bit more first, and then when they
Yeah.
get to like the elite level of the NHL, AHL, like maybe those are the guys like, hey, we actually probably don't need to go 5 to 6 days a week in the gym. We can go
Right.
4 days a week, and you can skate a little bit more because reality, that's what's going to make you more money
Right.
at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Now, longevity and everything is important too, but at the end of the day, they need to improve their probably tactical knowledge and just
Yeah.
their reaction.
Right. No, I wholeheartedly agree there. Like it's interesting because you get that dichotomy. Like you see, like we have NHL players that train with us, and it's like you get the youth kids in, and like obviously they're always like enamored by having NHLers in the gym with them, and it's like you're pointing to them to be like, this guy literally plays at the highest level, the level that you dream to get to, and he takes the month off, right? So like that's not what's getting you to the next level, right? It's not like being on the ice 24/7. Maybe if you're an absolute freak in the gym and like you just lack, like you say, that tactical knowledge of the game, or like you suck at stick handling or whatever, maybe that is your low hanging fruit. Maybe you just do need to spend more time there. But in most cases, like I think the kids are just spending a little bit too much time on the ice, which kind of leads me into the next question is like, you guys at Velocity Training Center deal with NHLers, obviously, all the way down, like you said, down to like youth, down into the squirts and the mites. What is the biggest difference you've noticed in working with NHLers from both like a training standpoint, and what is the biggest separator of like the guys who make it to the NHL versus the guys who seem to like peter out? If you can, I know it's hard to like pinpoint a thing that actually separates players, but like if there's any correlation or kind of commonalities that you've noticed in your NHL guys that really like breed success.
From a physical standpoint, like the NHLers that I work with, like I actually work with a lot more like older veteran NHLers. I don't work with like I don't think I have like any like rookie NHLers. Like I think all my full-time NHL guys that I work with are all like at least 6 years in.
Right.
6. I have one guy that's I think he's on his 12th year.
Yeah.
And it's just like you hear it all the time. Like act like a pro, create the habits. like in reality, they're not wrong. Like there's a lot of my full-time NHLers, they come in, they get this is their job. They come in,
Yeah.
they get the work done. They don't half-ass stuff. Like everyone's like, oh, working hard to get like you still have to be talented. 100%. You still, at the end of the day, like if you just don't have it, you just don't have it, right?
Right.
But you still need to come in and you still have to work hard. And I think that's the bigger thing is like, and we have some of my privates that I work with will come in when, say, example, in the summer when my NHL guys are just getting done with their session or stuff like that. Like, and they've seen some of the NHLers work out here and stuff like that. And like, oh crap, like they actually like still work hard for even being like a 12 years in the league,
Right.
and they understand that. But I would say from a physical standpoint, it's like it just their movement quality. I don't even want to say like movement quality, because like some guys you get on like a table and like maybe their hip IR is terrible, but they do stuff and they make it look so easy. It's
Right.
like more that fluidity. It's like they do things that just they make it look so effortless and
Right.
smooth. And like I had a guy jump 37 inches and doesn't even look like he's trying, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know here. Like he doesn't even look like he tried. Like, and then I
Right.
have guys that I know they're not trying because I've seen their like their max jump heights, or I've seen their RSI score. Like I've seen pro NHLers come in late to our session, and like, hey, make sure we get our maybe the individual movement screening that they've, or mobility work that they have to do based on the organization I've talked with and the screening we've done. Like, make sure you get that done before we get into our sprints. Walks in, like, literally hasn't even dropped his keys yet. Comes to the
Yeah.
timing gates, hey, runs like a PR. Like,
Yeah.
it just sometimes that like some of the guys are just so competitive that they'll do anything to win, or like again, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint one thing. But I would definitely say like working with NHLers, you like they're not really any different from like from my own standing of like they still need to work hard. Like I
Yeah.
don't think there is a single NHLer that I work with personally, even college guys I've worked with, that you still need to work hard. I don't think there's ever been a guy that I was like, hey, you're not a hard worker. You got here on
Right.
luck. Right. Like you still need to be talented. Like organizations still want you to work your butt off and everything like that. Um, but yeah, I would say like it's just like pro guy, like the NHLers do everything almost like it's in slow motion.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest thing I've noticed, like working with NHL guys to working with those mites or squirts or whatever it is, like they just don't see the game the same yet. And
Right.
then you have a couple like high school guys, or like you watch them like, okay, he sees something here. Like there's something here with this guy.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if that really answers the question very
No,
well,
it
but yeah.
does. It does for sure. It's interesting. Like I know exactly what you mean. It's like some kids have it and some kids don't. And it's weird if you spend enough time around enough athletes. It's like you can kind of like see which kids like really get it, which kids are really focused. And one thing I think that you said there that I wholeheartedly agree with is that like pros treat it like it's their job because it's their job. And so like the one piece of advice I give any kid who like will stay after the session and be like, man, like, you know, what am I doing wrong? How do I get better? Like, how do I make sure I'm checking all the boxes and doing the things right? And I'm like, you're in here with our pro group, or you see the tail end of their session, right? And the piece of advice I'll give them is like, you know, even though it's not your job yet, you want it to be your job. So treat it like your job, right? And that's the one thing I notice the biggest separator between like our mornings usually go like in the off season it'd be like pro group, and then the next group's like junior, and then the groups get younger as the day goes on.
Yeah,
And
same here.
and so the one thing I notice is that like the pros come in and it doesn't matter. Like obviously we have fun, we mess around in the gym, right? But the pros come in and it's like it's time to work, right? I dedicate this 90 minutes to work. It doesn't matter if they're hungover or they slept like shit the last night, or their kid was up all night or whatever, right? They come in, they're like, this is the hour to work. Like we get the work done. Whereas like
Right.
sometimes you'll have kids, 15-year-olds coming in and they're messing around with their buddies, they're texting, and like they're just like, and maybe part of that, maybe that's on me for not like building an engaging session. But part of it, it's like, you know, like when you're here, it's we're here to work. And it's like I think that relentless pursuit of just like every single day, it's like we're here to work. You do the stuff you do in the gym, you do the stuff you do on the ice to just like make it to that next level, right? And just like you said,
Right.
work hard. Nobody made it by not working hard, right? You did mention in there that like a lot of your guys are veteran players, like up to 12-year pros. What is like a what does the programming look like for someone who's like 12 years in? Like obviously they know their body at this point. they're probably pretty banged up from playing 12 years pro.
Right.
Does the programming change at all in terms of like, obviously now our focus is, you start playing 12 years in the NHL, like your days are starting to get numbered, right? And
Right.
it's a rough sport. It's hard on the body. Hockey in general is hard on the hips and hard on the joints to begin with. Especially you start getting guys who are playing on good teams who go on deep runs and they only have, maybe 6-8 weeks in the off season to actually prepare for the next season. How do you approach just like that longevity standpoint of working with those veterans of, how do we just extend your career at this point? It's not really about making you, X amount better in your outputs, right? It's about extending,
Right.
making you feel good for 82 games. How do you approach that?
I guess kind of going off that little last snippet you just said, like make you feel better for 82 games. Like at the end of the day, when the NHLers, AHLers, like college guys that I have for the summer, when they leave here after the summer, like I don't have any control. Now there are some guys, like especially more than my junior guys, and there are some college guys that are in the local area that I'm in because they play for local colleges that I do see kind of on a weekly basis. That will typically come in and get some body work done by me or one of my assistants and stuff like that. So I see them, but like outside of that, like I don't work with NHL like players reality. Like I don't write them programs or anything like that
Right.
because they all have their respected strength coaches for their organization. Now I
Yeah.
do definitely check in, like offer my, hey, can I help you out with anything? How's the season going? How's the family? Just still check in from time to time. But I would say like those older guys, I definitely probably actually rely on them a lot more because reality, I just turned 29, and I would
Yeah.
say almost besides maybe my all our full-time NHLers, I think only two of them are younger than me.
Yeah.
So like and now there's two of them that are, or there actually no, there's three that are younger than me. The three are younger than me by 2 years, 2 or 3 years, like and all the older ones are older than me by like 2 years. So it's like it's
Yeah.
not like they're way older than me, but like a lot of the older guys, I rely on them. Like, how does your body feel? You've been around, you've been in the league for 12 years. You know what makes your body feel good. You know what makes your body feel like shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm supposed to swear on you. I apologize.
No
Um,
worries at all, man. Let it rip.
you know what makes you feel good. So I actually rely on them a lot. Like in the I make it like I kind of give them a lot of autonomy, those older guys, just because, like, especially for warm ups, like, if they have a routine coming in, they know, like, as long as they have an idea of, like, hey, this is what, based on testing, like, what we need to improve on from an output standpoint, like, what we need to improve on, and they know maybe what is a really good lower body warm up for them before we maybe do the prep work that I have written in,
Right.
right? They want to come in, like some guys get here early and they go through their whole foam roll routine and everything like
Yeah.
that maybe I didn't write, but that's what they've done for years. It makes their body feel great. Awesome, you can do
Yeah.
that. I'm not.
Yeah.
You're an NHL player. I'm not going to tell you no.
Right. That's right.
Now if they come to me and said, like, ask for my advice on stuff, 100% I'm going to give them that. Like, hey, I'm feeling tight here, is there something I could do? Or is like, how does it, you still correct them on form 100%, but like, again, they're experienced enough, they've been around the league, everything like that. When you've been, I think the 12-year NHL guy, he's on his third year with the team he's on now, and he's been with four other teams. Like that's,
Yeah.
he's been around, right? So he
Right.
understands what is good for him. Now does he understand maybe the full on nitty gritty sciencey stuff? No, but he understands, like, hey, we're trying to improve his first step. Okay, hey, you have locked up ankles. We probably need to try to unlock our ankle. Or
Yeah.
hey, I have really tight groin. Is it actually tight, or is it you just don't have strength there? So that's where
Yeah.
maybe we'll have that conversation. But the programming itself is pretty individualized, at least from an output standpoint, just based on some testing, whether it be our sprint testing and some jump testing. We do a little bit of, I guess, like screening, and I talk with organizations if there's any like big issues from like injury standpoint, and then I'll talk with the player if they've had any like injuries or big things that they saw throughout the year, things they dealt with. So then we'll source out maybe to a couple local chiros that I trust, stuff
Right.
like that. I'll talk with their medical staff of what they've seen to try to again be this holistic approach so everyone's involved because I don't know everything.
Right.
Um, so I guess the programming changes from the sense of I would say the older guys I actually rely on them a lot and like to tell me how they actually feel. Now you can use your whoop data and your
Yeah.
counter movement jump and like get super gritty in the sciencey. But like if a guy comes into me, he's like, Nate, I'm just not feeling this today. Like, okay, that's fine. Like we'll have a conversation of like, okay, what's going on?
Mhm.
Do I need to adjust things? Or I'm like, or even some of our guys now will like ask me, hey, when should I skate? Like these are when I'm supposed to skate. Should I work out before or after? Like what's say the next 2 weeks plan and stuff like that. Now if they know they can't get their workout in after, great.
Yeah.
Like it's just logistically not gonna happen. So they'll
Yeah.
come in before or something like whatever it is and get it in. But a lot of guys, I'm like, reality, you're an NHLer. The more important thing for you is to get on the ice. You can
Yeah.
come in and if I find out that the skate was an absolute bag and you're just trash, fine. We'll take off a set or whatever it is. Hey, you just
Yeah.
came off the ice. We don't need a sprint. Would I like the data 100%? I don't need to. We're still probably going to do
Right.
chain sprints or some speed thing in the workout to get the adaptation I need.
Yeah.
I don't need to force you through this 3 time 20-yard sprints to get on my Excel spreadsheet. I
Yeah.
don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we you missing one day of it isn't going to hurt my feelings. It's not going to completely detriment the program.
Right.
So again, it just comes down to I probably talk a lot more with those NHL guys on a regular basis. And like I talk with all the guys on a regular basis, try to make it really well known that I do care about them
Mhm.
on like how they're feeling. But I would definitely say those older guys I talk to quite a bit on like how are you actually doing? Like
Yeah.
are there things that you feel like you need to like the program needs to have?
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, no, I love that. That's similar to how I approach it. Like I'm in a similar boat to you. I'm 29 as well, and like so a lot of the guys that we have are, like you say, like they're older than me, and like you say, like you've been in the league for 4 or 5 years now. Like kind of what your body needs, right? And who am I to tell you that it doesn't work? Or so I think with a lot of those guys, it's just about me like staying out of their way. And if they want advice, like you say, you give it to them. And if even if like I don't believe in something that they're doing, if that makes you feel good, man, and it helps you prepare your body, then I love it. Keep it in the program. Obviously, it works for you, even if it's not like we don't even need to get into the science of like is it physiologically working? Like who cares? Like psychologically, it's working for that athlete, right? And so
right.
if it's working, they're in the league. They've been in the league for 5 years. Who are you to say no to that, right? So I love that answer. You mentioned in there like collecting data and force plate data and sprint data and all that sort of stuff. Similar to your scenario, I came from like where I learned strength and conditioning basically was in the university sector. So working with like our university hockey teams, and in that sector, you obviously know that it's publicly funded. They have a lot of money, right? And so we had all the cool gadgets. We had the Hawkins force plates, and we collected speed data, and we did our testing regularly, and we used the data to really drive programming. Since transitioning into the private sector, obviously I don't have an unlimited cash flow to pay for $10,000 force plates and the software and all that sort of stuff. I love having data, and me personally, I'm very science driven. I like using data to tell me what is happening physiologically. Do you like where the sport is going, and it's so technologically advanced now, and there's so much analytics wrapped up in every sport, not even just hockey? Do you guys use a lot of like technology to drive your programming, and do you think with the analytics these days that like players can kind of get too wrapped up in kind of the numbers?
Um I guess so for us, we have the Kaiser machines that you've seen on our
Yeah.
Instagram and stuff like that. And for me, and like we have our timing gates, we have a jump mat. We don't have a force plate right now. That's possibly coming down the road. Can't and everything. Would love one. and I know I've read books on force plates and all that good stuff. And I have a Whoop and all that stuff because you can get down the recovery aspect of the data. And at the end of the day, like for me, like if I'm looking at my own training, I like the say the timing gates, the force or the jump mat and the Whoop is like I like it from a game standpoint. Like I like seeing the numbers because I like seeing it as a game. Like, can I beat this? Like, hey, like for example, my Whoop, like let's see how high I can get my heart rate in the sauna. Go in the cold tub and see how low I can get it. Like I literally just treat it as a game. Do I use, for example, my Whoop as like a hey, I'm yellow today, I shouldn't sprint today. I am probably too much I'm in tune enough to know how I feel. Like, for example, I had sprints yesterday and I was quote unquote green according to my Whoop. I was not fast at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? I'm like, but like I use it as like again, I don't let that affect me personally. Like I can justify paying for my own Whoop because a couple of our players use it. So it's just nice to understand the metrics and all that stuff. But I definitely see the standpoint of like sometimes too much data is too much noise. And I think too much noise going on, it can definitely have like a ton of big effect. Like I know guys that buy Whoops and they wear it just for the summer and then they get rid of it.
Yeah.
They don't wear it in season because they don't want them to let them affect them mentally before game. Like they don't want to wake up on day of game. Hey, I'm 39% recovered. Oh crap, I can't play. I think my Austin Yoakum just had like a short YouTube video kind of about this whole conversation of recovery and like how nowadays people have like they're over recovering or they're caring so much about the recovery they've kind of lost sight of training. Now dealing with NHL athletes that play 82 games with travel, it's a little bit different, right? But and I think Patrick Mahomes trainers talked about how he uses Whoop in the sense of it's more of a competition. He literally uses it to drive competition. Who can get more strain in this workout or whatever it is. And I think that's the good thing about maybe the Whoop might be like the jump mats. Like it just drives more output, right? Like you like seeing the numbers because it drop for me at least when I like work out with like quote unquote my like close group of strength coach buddies. Like we literally probably use the sprint timing gates every time we're doing lower body. We use the jump mat almost every day, whether it be upper body, lower body. Like we literally only use it to just drive competition and call each other out. That's the only reason why we use it. Do we track every metric? No. Like I don't think I track every push-up, jump, or every jump that I do, just because my Excel spreadsheet would be massive. But it's just to call out other people. But yeah, that's I guess I can see it. It's going to keep getting more data driven just because with technology growing and everything. It's a good and a bad thing. You just have to understand what is good and what's not good and kind of how to interpret the information.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Like you can definitely get a little too lost in the weeds on that stuff. And like I do, like I say, I personally like data. I like using data to a certain extent. Like I use the minimum viable amount of data that I need to use to tell me the information I need, right? I do really love your point there of just like the gamification and using it as like almost like an auto regulation of like how you're feeling that day. You come in, you run one sprint, you're like, whoa, that was way worse than I ran last time or whatever. Maybe sprints aren't in the cards today, right? And I love that. And just like from the gamification standpoint of, you want a kid to run faster, get someone to chase him, or yell out his buddy's time before he goes and runs, right? Like he's going to try to beat that time every time. Like athletes are competitive. And so like I love using the data just like to, like you say, to drive that intensification of the training. I guess a follow-up question to that, like hockey as a sport is evolving so fast, right? Like we say with the data, but even just like players are getting so good at such a young age now. Like the World Juniors just ended. Like big congrats to Team USA. Tough being a Canadian this year, but Team USA looked really really good. But like you watch a tournament like that, and like the talent of these kids at like 17 years old is absolutely off the charts these days. And like hockey just continues. It seemingly each year it's evolving so fast, right? And so I'm
Right.
interested to get your take on like where you see the sport evolving to in the next like 3 to 5 years, and how you can stay ahead of that curve as like a premier like hockey training facility.
I think it's just gonna get it's gonna be kind of going from a technology standpoint. I think we're gonna get into where you see, if you look at NFL, right? You see like what everyone's running top speed wise, right? You're gonna start
Yeah.
seeing that. You're gonna start seeing maybe like the statistics of like the top fastest teams are the teams that score the most goals, are the teams that have the highest
Right.
percentage of wins. Like now, reality, that's kind of, to a certain degree, it might be common sense, right? Like the fastest team has the best chance to win.
Right.
Everything. I just kind of see it going to trying to give as much of almost like just data that like the average person could look at and be like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, right? No.
Yeah.
Just to like, it's gonna sell, right? Like it's gonna look like if they show Connor McDavid skating 25 miles an hour now, that people don't need to know that's not his top speed. He might be able to skate 27, but they're gonna be like, wow, 25 miles an hour, that's really fast, right? They're gonna see that
Right.
on the screen, and they're gonna want it. It's just like a video game. The more that they can gamify the actual game itself of like make it look like not make it look like a video game, but like you can see like they're taking that little video game aspect of hockey, like of NHL, Chell, or whatever you want to call it, and put it in the
Yeah.
actual like product of entertainment that's gonna help out, right? And I think from a training standpoint, like if you aren't advancing like the technology standpoint of everything, like you just with anything, you're gonna kind of get left behind. The biggest thing is, I think, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, is like you still need to work hard. You still need to learn how to train hard, and you
Right.
still need to like come in, do the job, trust the process. Now there's definitely high and low days and all that good stuff to regulate the nervous system, but like you still need to understand like what hard work is and everything. And if that's quantifying everything through technology, great, awesome. But I think you just can't just come in and like at the end of the day, like the old stuff still can work. Like the principles around everything, like barbells have been around for a long time. They're still,
Right.
and if I recall, Rogue and Stornix are still making barbells and still selling
Yeah.
barbells.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're still good at like you can still use them to a certain extent. It's not like everything you have to do is going to be a flywheel. Like we're only
Yeah.
using flywheel. Like you can still get that same adaptation right out of maybe a barbell, but it might be a drop catch or something like that, right? You just have to be more creative if you don't have access to the technologies.
For
But if you
sure.
want
Yeah.
to sell, like if you want to make more money, you have to almost invest a little bit in. Otherwise, you will get left behind to a certain degree. Yeah, and then trying to add in more of the whole holistic of everything, like adding all the recovery modalities like sauna, cold plunge. Does your company have whoops tied to everything? Do we have heart rate monitors on every workout? Like just trying to like
Yeah.
almost treat it like a full on, your company as a full on organization, right? Like do you have all
Yeah.
this extra stuff? I think is what you're gonna kind of see from like our industry. Now for the game, it's just gonna keep getting faster. It's gonna get
For sure.
faster, way more just high scoring games, everything like that. It's just gonna be the game, right? Like you see with the national development team is a prime example of like, at least for the U.S. national development team, by the way, I should say, um, like they're super talented. Almost, I think I heard on the World Junior game there was 40 picks between first round draft picks or 40
Yeah.
NHL draft picks between USA and Sweden. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's nuts. Like
Yeah.
that's
It's crazy.
crazy. So like the talent pool is just gonna get so good going forward. And I think it's because like kids are starting to train and understand, like, I need to train at a younger age if
Mhm.
I want to essentially get in the NHL younger. They're gonna see like the Hughes brothers, right? They see
Yeah.
them like Luke Hughes is 20 years old. He can't even drink yet. I don't think. I think he's maybe 21
Yeah.
now, but and he's he's a pretty darn good defenseman. Jack Hughes
Mhm.
just turned 22 and he's been in the league for 4 years now, and I think he has like 48 points. Connor
Yeah.
Bedard, another prime example. You know, he has broken jaw now, but like he's still like, you see clips of him working out and it's like he's training, right? Like
Yeah.
you still, if you're a kid and you're not training, like why is it good for these young NHL stars to do it? But then all of a sudden, like I've had kids say, yeah, I'm just gonna skate. I'm like, but like we have prime examples, like we can
Yeah.
train, we have to get better. Like,
Yeah.
not saying you can't get better on ice, but like we have to improve other qualities rather than just spending time on the ice.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to eventually be some sort of holistic, whether it be holistic, where everything's going to be even more meshed together. And you're kind of already seeing that in other sports, I think, a lot is like the catapult, which catapult's been around for hockey anyways for a while, but they're
Yeah.
going to start using that data to make practice plans, to do all this other, which they already are. If you actually know any NHL organizations, like I'm fairly close with a couple and they've showed me data and stuff, like they're already doing that. Like,
Yeah.
so it's just going to become more technology driven. And then you have the smart coaches that have been around a long time where it's like, they yeah, they like the data, but they have the coach's eye. They understand, like, they don't need the data to justify. Again, it
Yeah.
just, some of the data just justifies what you already know, but people like it
Yeah.
because it's it's on a computer, so it's got to be right.
That's right. Yeah. No, I
Um,
completely agree there. Yeah, no, it's interesting because like we say, like the sport is evolving and it's getting so much faster, and it's easy to like get caught up in like, oh, we have to be on this cutting edge, but like you alluded to a great point there where it's like there's still like the foundational element is still the foundational element of like you still need to work hard, you still need to be, like strong, powerful, like you still need to be good at hockey, like those elements still exist. It's like it's just because you think like you should be skating 9 times a week, like that's not the reason that's going to get you there, even though that's where the sport is evolving to. The fundamentals are still sticking around. So I love that answer. I want to be conscious of your time here because I know you have a group coming in the gym here pretty soon. One question I like to ask all the guests is they always say that there's that old adage of you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. I think in like the technological world that we live in now, I think that still holds true, but I think it's more true to say you're the average of the 5 people you kind of consume the most, or you kind of take the most advice from, right? Who you're watching on YouTube and who you follow on Instagram, that
right.
sort of thing. So, who are those 5 people for you? Like, who would be the 5 people you surround yourself with, or learn the most from, in terms of even like in your small circle, like you say, your strength coach buddies or people you're following on Instagram and those sorts of things.
Well, if we go off my YouTube account, my wife would say all the golf videos I watch. Um, but I don't know, like, I guess from like a lot of people that might listen to this already kind of know one of them is workhorse training. He was one of my
Yeah,
assistants this past summer and the summer prior to that. Still talk with him quite a bit. Lock and Reed is his actual name for those that do
yeah.
not know. Of course, Austin
Give them a
Yoakum.
follow. Great follow on Instagram for anyone who doesn't
Yep,
follow him.
great follow. Tons of racehorse content, which that was what we did as coaches all summer long,
Yeah, it
was
was fun to watch. I
racehorse,
watched it from afar, so it was fun to watch.
which again, a lot of the racehorse principles that Locken took is very similar to training, how we train our hockey guys from like the speed perspective and power, because a lot of that's just from DB Hammer's book, which is also very similar to triphasic, which is also
Right.
very similar to super training. Like it's just all said a different way, the terminologies. But I would definitely say like him, Austin Yoakum, or Yoakum Strength, I guess, whatever, either one you want to follow on Instagram, probably both. And then Jake Tura, even though he's all just about knee pain and tendons. And then like I do have to credit a lot of stuff to Cal Dietz, just because now do I talk to Cal as a regular basis as I do like lock-in and stuff like that? No, but I'm still learning from Cal all the time. Like if I go down and visit, because I'm literally like 20 minutes away from the U of M.
Yeah.
So I go down there, try to go down there as much as I can. Trying to think if there's any like super big ones. Like I'll even just scroll through my like podcast. Like I don't know if you knew who the muscle doc is, Jordan Shallow or
Yep.
Killian Hamilton. Like they're pretty good. They're the way they explain things is super well thought out and everything. I don't even know, like Killian's just, for not being in the industry of like, he didn't go to school for it or anything like that. He's like super well versed on everything, and he's super good at explaining like the whole skill acquisition standpoint.
Yeah.
But I would say those kind of 5 for sure. And then you still have to credit Nick DeMarco. Now Nick DeMarco has taught me a lot more about actual coaching itself, not so much like the sciencey standpoint, but like how to be like a good coach. That's what I would say I credit to Nick DeMarco a lot at Elon Performance, which I don't think Nick posts a ton as much anymore on his personal account. It's all on Elon Performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say those. And then if you haven't read DB Hammer's The Best Sports Training book, like it's pretty good still. Like if you want to know about all the impulses, drop catches, all that stuff, that's really good. What I've been kind of diving into a ton, and one of my interns is doing some stuff right now, is all like, if you know who like Dak is, on Instagram, he's actually training one of my interns and talking with one of my old interns about that, like all the impulses, slow lowers, long duration isometrics, which have been around for a while, and like he's actually kind of rehabbing some stuff right now, and just how that's going. Dak has some really good stuff. It's very different. So like it's not different, but just in the volume he does, it's a lot. Like he'll do 300 drop catches.
Yeah.
That's like crazy. It's just it's definitely different than the normal. But I would say those are like a lot, like what I look at a lot are those guys.
No, I love that. No, that's a great, like I say, I follow all those guys on Instagram. Anyone else who doesn't follow them, they're all great follows. I'll definitely drop the handles and stuff down in the show notes. But Nate, man, I really want to thank you for your time. You've been gracious with your time today. For people who don't know about you or want to know more about you and what you're doing, where can we find you?
I think my Instagram handle is, I don't even know, being too old. Nathan.Welty is my personal one, which I would say I post a lot more on that one. We do have Velocity Training Center is the other one. Typically, if you see it on Velocity Training Center's page, it's usually very similar to what I would post, or vice versa. Typically, it gets shared either way on one of those 2 pages. And then I have Twitter as well. That's just a lot of retweets of like players score goals and stuff like that. Not really, like I don't really actually interact on anything on Twitter, which maybe if you talk to some people I probably should, but it's at NJWelty23.
Cool. Love it, man. I love it. Yeah. Well, like I said, I can't thank you enough. And we didn't even get into the Cal Dietz stuff. And you mentioned golf. I'm a golf nut. So we'll have to have you back on, talk about some Cal stuff, and go down the golf rabbit hole.
We can. I got to get my handicap better. I'm going to be up in Banff at the end of the summer.
Oh, man. It's a nice place to play golf. You ever been?
Nope. We got invited to one of the pro guys' wedding. So the plan is to play in Banff right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You'll have a good time. Definitely some scenic courses around there. So that'll be good, man.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, dude.